A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. With the changing times and tides, battles have shifted from physical ground to digital ones. Today, I'm in conversation with two very accomplished entrepreneurs whose latest venture coup is much talked about, controversial, and some may even call it political. For the uninitiated, Coup is an Indian microblogging platform that's seen as a Twitter competitor. Coup has been, in the making for less than a year. Started building it in 2019 and was floated as a platform in May 2020. But it's already got on board about 5.5 million users. The recent standoff between the government and Twitter led to a surge of interest in domestic social media platforms, with Coup garnering millions of downloads in just a few months. I am very excited to be joined by Aprameya Radhakrishna and Mayank Bilavatka, the co-founders of Coup, as I am bursting with questions for them. I'm sure just like everybody else. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me right here today on Brand Equity. First things first, before I dive into all the controversial questions I have, you gave birth in May 2020. We're today, April 2021. What's happened so far in your journey? How many users? What's the kind of interest? What's the investor interest? All of that.
We've grown pretty fast for a one-year-old company. We are above 5 million downloads right now, close to 5.5 million downloads. We've enabled local languages like never before on a microblogging platform. We're giving a voice to Indians who have never been heard on the internet ever before. So a very different flavor to microblogging is what Coup has given. Because of this, we've been able to attract the most famous personalities onto the platform, whether it is from sports, whether it is from Bollywood, whether it is from politics. So everybody wants to reach out to the Indian language speaker. And we've been able to, build that community, and the community is getting stronger, and our product is getting stronger.
So before I started this interview, I sent out a tweet and I said, hey, I'm going to be interviewing the founders of Coup, so any questions, bring it up. So one of them was, why the name Coup? Because it's so similar to, Twitter.
We wanted to create an emotional brand, and we wanted to associate the brand with some animal, right? It's something that the masses could relate to. So it's usually a bird that's considered a carrier of messages. So we wanted the bird as a logo for that particular reason, and we wanted to associate it with a happy color, which is yellow. And you have the koel ki kook, which is the sound, a sweet sound of a bird. And it's a very easy name for anyone to pronounce. And when you're creating a brand for vernacular India, you can't create a brand that means something in Hindi, but doesn't make sense to someone who's a Tamilian or vice versa. You have to have a very generic name, and hence we went with a name like Coup.
Right, Mayank, I completely get your brand philosophy and how you explain that. But some might argue that it's a straight ripoff from Twitter, right?
It's not like anyone can't use a bird logo because it's been used. It's not like you can't use an elephant logo because Times of India has an elephant logo, right? It's not a copyright issue. It's just that it would have been a copyright issue if you have a similar looking bird, if you have a similar colored bird. Those are issues at that time. But it's not like no other brand is allowed to use a bird because Twitter has a bird.
But let me move on to slightly more challenging questions, which is that, and I'm sure you're used to this by now because people have been throwing it at you for a while. This Coup became such a big phenomenon when Twitter and the government, came into, they were at loggerheads, and there were issues of, content moderation and so on and so forth, and everybody knows the story. And you became a phenomenon then, and then you suddenly got, a lot of downloads, in a couple of months, and since then the narrative has always been that Coup is a government mouthpiece, and Coup has been given birth to to be the government mouthpiece, and for all of those who are right-wingers, for the lack of a better word. Firstly, if that's true, please tell us. If it's not, please let us know why this perception then, and such a strong one at it.
We have users from all over the place. As in Karnataka, in Kannada, which is our first community, we actually have the Congress leader, Mr. D.K. Shivkumar. We've got JDS leaders, former Prime Minister H.D. Devegowda and Mr. Kumaraswamy, right? And along with them, we have the ruling party, the Chief Minister, Mr. Yediyurappa, and Deputy Chief Minister Ashwath Narayan, and many other folks. Now that we are talking about it, everybody knows. Now, if some people only talk about, okay, at the union ministry level, there are only folks from one party or the other. Obviously, the ruling party is the one that is representing India and what Twitter should or shouldn't have done, right? So obviously, they are the ones who are going to be, looking for an alternative for India. It is not somebody else, right? So that is where I think, some people only spoke about one incident, whereas why we exist and other people, right? Like Mr. Kamal Nath is there on the platform. He's a very active user. We haven't spoken about it because we don't want, if somebody doesn't want to speak about all the others who are on the platform, right? That is the problem. It is not about us executing it. It is about who is speaking and what they're speaking about. So the more we speak about all the kinds of people on the platform, the better it will become, right? Because we are apolitical, we are neutral, and we want to build a great product from India for Indians, which will also have a potential of going to the world.
If it's essentially targeting vernacular India, how do you sense the scope of coup going beyond, Indian shores?
It's because there are enough countries across the world which have a majority population which doesn't speak English, right? And there are countries which have multiple languages in their country, just like India. So that is what we will solve for, right? While we build for India. And those countries will adopt us and coup in a much better manner than everybody else, right? Like the English-speaking homogeneous language in a country kind of world will use, a Twitter, for example.
Sure.
But countries which have multiple languages, non-English heavy populations are the opportunity for coup.
You won the Atmanirbhar challenge, and that's how this entire platform was conceived in the first place. So you're clearly homegrown, very close to Indians and to India, and you're our pet project. And you've got support from the government, which is very important. So with that comes its own set of complications, right? Tomorrow, once you, let's say, get more and more followers and you get all kinds of participants onto your platform, there will be all kinds of points of views that are expressed. Now, in the event, let us say you are asked to block some accounts or intervene or moderate, because it is not going with the flow of the narrative of the country, what will you do?
We are a company registered in India. We are Indian citizens. So when it comes to, what we will be governed by are the laws of the land, right? It is not a particular political party or anybody else, right? There is a constitution. It states how we will be governed, right? And, if somebody uses coup as a platform to, spread violence or for a single person or for multiple people or against a particular race, particular caste, particular religion, there is a way that that the country handles it in the offline world, right? So if somebody goes and says, I will kill you because you're from this religion, that is how it will be dealt with in the offline world, is also the same way it will be dealt with if you say it in the online world, right? So the laws of the land is what will be followed, right? And we have certain community guidelines which are framed based on those laws of the land, right? There are black and white situations, like if there is pornography, there is abuse against a woman,
Yeah,
harassment is happening, all of those things are unacceptable, right? Nobody should accept it. And that's
absolutely.
where we are. There will be certain gray areas, right? Those gray areas could be okay, one person perceives it as a threat, somebody else doesn't perceive it as a threat. So, those are areas which we will be governed through the laws of the land. I'll give you certain observations on the platform, right? Actually, our language communities, which is Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada,
Yeah.
they they speak a lot more about the culture of India. They write poems.
Oh,
They're
really?
accepting each other a lot more than what the English communities would, right?
Okay.
So there is not as much, hatred, perceived hatred that we have in our minds in the language communities that we are building today, right? So even if they are not agreeing, they are not agreeing in a very civil manner in those communities.
That's really an eye opener.
That's our observation so far at the scale that we are.
So saying this hate spewing rant and all of that we've been seeing on Twitter, you're saying in the English speaking audience does not translate in the vernacular audience. Their conversation ethos is different, you're saying.
Correct. It's like the Kannada community. I'm a Kannadiga. I keep going to the Kannada community and checking out what there is. There are so many people writing poems every day. My observation, like I'm just surprised how they can write poems every day, right? They're celebrating culture of India. They're celebrating who they are. They're celebrating the language. They're celebrating things that are hyper local, which are not always politics, right? They're discussing various things, right? They're updating about what they're doing in their life every day, right? Because they're saying that to other Kannadigas. So this flavor of a social media has never been seen before, right? So yes, there is a perception that microblogging can only spew hate, but that is not what we are trying to build.
Let's talk a little bit about your product interface. Uh, for the English speaking population who are digital savvy, no big deal. But I'm saying for people who are using a microblogging site for the first time, what's the kind of hiccups you're seeing in terms of acceptance and user interface, friendliness?
When a lot of the vernacular language users, when they enter the app, the first screen that they see is a language selection screen. They have the ability to choose the language that they prefer. Post that, every instruction is in that language. The people that they see is in that language. The content that they see is of that language. So it's a very immersive experience once a user selects their language. Even when they want to create something, they have the ability to create this in text, audio, or video. A lot of the users are not necessarily comfortable using the keyboard, and hence we've given them the ability to record an audio or a video because that's easier for expression. They don't have to type out long wielding words using the keyboard if that's something that they're uncomfortable with. So we've kept the Indian language users' needs in mind and built in nuances into the product.
I know that you're an Indian company registered in India, but there was a narrative around you about about your registration, about your investors, about data leaks. So can you once and for all explain to me and to my viewers what was that all about? What is the truth? And I also know that your Chinese investor has been brought out by a clutch of high-profile Indian investors. So if you could just put that all, right up front for all our understanding and clarity.
Yes, we had raised money from Shunway, which is arguably a global investor, but also has a Chinese founder, right? So because of the kind of business that we are in, and it has every thought of an Indian on the platform, and we have to give comfort for every user that is there in India. Even the one thing that was questioned about Chinese investment, while we could have gone in the angle of, okay, they're not really Chinese, they're a global investor, they have money from all over the world. We didn't actually do that. We said, let's give comfort, right? It doesn't matter. We really want to build right for the country. And hence we requested them, and they were also very mature about why we were asking them for an exit, and they did exit, right? And we had raised investment when everything was fine. Like, this was in 2018. The most aggressive investors in India were the Chinese investors.
What is the monetization plan in terms of, not just advertising, which is, what everybody's doing, but what are the other innovative ways you're looking to monetize the platform?
We're looking at creating a large platform with people across languages, across states using this. We have a very good flavor of the kind of segments that will be using a platform like this, whether it's the celebrities, the politicians, the sports stars, some of the most prominent faces of India, the masses of India, the intellectuals of India, right? Most platforms don't have these flavors. So one is that it does lend itself very well to advertising. When you look at other means of monetization, we'll monetize multiple interactions between each of these segments. Every time we look at a connection between each of these segments, there's some sort of monetization that can be done there. The other thing,
an example,
brands want to reach out to influencers to promote their businesses would be one example. So like that, you could look at businesses, creators, users, celebrities, and interactions between each of these could lead to some sort of monetization. Businesses want easier tools to connect with users for issue resolution. You could monetize some aspects of that. The truth is that all users don't like advertising, but they do. Brands and businesses do drive a lot of value to these users. You have to find connects and relationships that make sense for both the parties. Advertising is something that makes a lot of sense for the business, but the user always cringes at it. So we'll find ways in which these relationships are made possible and made more meaningful. And that will be another huge way of monetization, something that a lot of businesses would not have looked at doing in the past.
So coming to, the data privacy policies and, how you're dealing with that. I don't think we have a data law yet. In the sense it's all quite, largely related to our country. What are you doing to ensure that consumers who sign on with you, that's first A within India, know that that privacy is being followed, data privacy is being followed, there's no breach, you're not using me to, sell it to other companies as we've seen in other cases. How are you ensuring all of that?
The first thing is that Koo is a public platform. So a lot of the data that is shared by users is done publicly with the objective of connecting with other users and making those.
What do you mean publicly, in the sense? Like,
let's take an example. If I go to my profile and I write my name is Mayank and my gender is male and I'm married, all that information that I have just shared with the users is to make it easy for other people to decide whether or not they want to connect with me. None of this information is, all the information that I've just entered right now is optional. No user is forced to enter any of this information that they're uncomfortable sharing with others. Unlike Facebook or WhatsApp, which are basically private networks, Koo is a public platform. You're sharing your views with the public in general. You're using Koo as a stage to amplify your voice. That is what a public platform means. So all the information that is shared by users is optional. Any kind of information that they feel uncomfortable sharing with other users is something that they don't need to.
Right. But let's take it a step forward, this example. Let's say I was an advertiser and I want to target my ad, right? And I feel that you are the right TG for me to target, right? That sifting and that kind of data analysis you would have to do and provide to the advertiser to ensure that that it is targeted. So are you giving me the option to say that, give me tailor-made ads for myself, or give me generic, or are you giving me those options?
Yes, you will be given those options in the future when we look at monetization.
Okay.
Each of these businesses run on certain economics, and when you provide options like that, it might even come at a price, right? Ad models work because users are not charged for content consumption.
Yeah, of course.
So so those kind of options will be provided to users.
Yeah. But last question before I let you go. You've spoken a lot about your philosophy, how you're planning to do it, your vision and all of that. But how are you really looking to get people to be educated about the fact that you exist, right? And then B, to get on, because that's going to be also quite a mammoth task. So what are the modes of, let's say, you're reaching out and your advertising plan to be out there and say, hey, come on board?
We are actually a part of people's lives, and a lot of the people who adopt our platform, they come through referrals. Like a few months back, you would have seen Amul create an ad about poo. They've created an account on poo. A lot of their properties are now talking about poo, which means their users get to know about us. And this is happening through multiple brands. A lot of the celebrities who are on board are very often talking about poo on their existing social media platforms. A lot of our content is unique and is being shared on all other social media platforms, right? So the acceleration that a platform like Poo gets keeps increasing as more people get associated with it.
On that note, thank you, both of you. Thank you for being patient and answering my several questions. I think this has definitely ensured a lot of clarity for starters. But once again, more power to you, more power to Poo becoming a secular, democratic network, for vernacular India. And I think at some point also for the English-speaking Indians. And all the very best. And hopefully, when we do a chat 6 months down the line, things will be very different.
No, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. You've asked questions objectively and heard us out patiently. That's
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.